I just started Senate this year, so in the fall of 2017. So this is my first full year in Senate, and my last because I'm graduating. Of course. So I'm the director of research for Student Senate. So basically, I am supplemental to the greater Student Senate body and also the commissions. So what I do specifically is I will help each commission conduct research for their constituents. So specifically, I've worked with the Women's Affairs Commission to help launch the survey that ended up capturing student student opinion on the tampon tax and tampon and menstrual product availability on campus, which then was able to be used to make decisions to thus fund the Take a Tampon, Leave a Tampon project. So I do a lot of work like that for individual commissions, and then I also do work for the greater Student Senate body, like form surveys for executive evaluations. And then I'm also able to use these research skills on university standing committees where I help form research questions for the Diversity and Inclusion Presidential Task Force, as well as other committees, specifically the Student Support Services Committee, where I help different departments on campus like the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, the Athletics Department, the Women's Center, LGBT Center, basically form surveys for the student body to understand their awareness of their services and how they use them. So I've really been able to do a lot of research for different areas on campus. And through that research, I feel like I'm able to reach a lot of students that normally aren't heard, which I'm really passionate about. But that's kind of a rundown of what I do as director of research. I've always loved research, so I've done a research apprenticeship with the College of Business, specifically the MIS department, since my sophomore year when I was studying abroad. And before then, I had tutorials where I just was really passionate about certain topics. And the idea of research, where you can formulate a question and then you can somehow derive a deliverable or some kind of meaning from that question using the knowledge of other people through a survey. That type of research is just so interesting to me. You know, you're able to capture how people feel through an instrument. So really, I think like having a passion for research and doing research through an apprenticeship and understanding, you know, what questions need to be asked, what type of metrics you need to capture. Like with a student survey, you have to capture demographic data so you know what students are saying this and how it affects students of different backgrounds and of different, you know, of different demographics. So I think having that passion, that experience really helped. And with this position, I've realized you need to be very organized because sometimes you'll have multiple surveys going on at once, or you'll be meeting with multiple commissions, and you have to, you know, really adapt your communication style and your work style to each commission. And each commission will ask you to do different things with the survey data. So not only will I create a survey based on what they want, but I'll launch it and then I'll pull it after launching it to the student body, and then I'll clean all the data, organize it, and formulate it into a report based on what they want. And then usually to kind of ease the commissioner's duty, I'll write a few sentences per page or a paragraph or so on what the data means. So I try to synthesize the meaning for them so they don't have to do it themselves. So I'm kind of that bridge between what the students feel and how that commission can use that data to make decisions. That's a good question. So I just learned that. I learned that this semester. So basically, all of the surveys we do are through Qualtrics because OU has a Qualtrics partnership, and as students, we have access to that service. So I do all the data collection through Qualtrics surveys, and then I basically will pull all that data in an Excel sheet. And when I do that, it's basically just the raw data. So it includes the timestamp, how long they took, their IP address, a lot of information that commissions don't need. So I just remove all that data. They don't need to know the IP address of their constituencies. That doesn't help them formulate decisions. So I obviously include all the raw data in case they want to perform their own analysis, but it's also my job based on what they say they want. It's my job to gather that data for them and make it easier because you can have 50 tabs in an Excel sheet, and no one wants to go through that. So basically, it comes in an Excel form. I'll clean it. I'll remove responses that are invalid or incomplete based on what the commission wants. And then usually I'll organize it by the type of student that answers these questions, or by question itself, really based on what answers they want from the survey. And then a lot of the times I'll make charts, tables, bar graphs, just to visually show the data, because that's a lot easier to capture than just looking at an Excel tab that may not mean something to someone. And then usually after making those data visualizations, that's what will be used in reports that are typically shown to Senate. So recently at the last meeting where the Environmental Affairs Commission presented, Lydia Romlo showed a chart of how people feel about the bag tax. I had made that chart because it's so much easier to show someone a bar graph than to show them an Excel sheet with 100 responses. So that's kind of the making between the raw data and then the visualized meaningful data. So far it's been pretty smooth with collecting the data. One project that I was extremely passionate about was the Women's Affairs Survey with the Take a Tampon, Leave a Tampon project. I was able to work really closely with the Take a Tampon, Leave a Tampon initiative and the Period Project organization on campus, where I was able to come to their meetings and tell this room full of women who are so passionate about bringing affordable and free menstrual products to those who menstruate on campus. I was able to meet with them, hear what they wanted from the survey, hear their concerns, and basically walk them through everything. And I felt like in that moment, we were able to have a great impact together, and I was able to support their cause because they are such an amazing organization. And then through that data, which I don't know how else that would have been collected, and I don't know how people would have understood how the university, how students feel about how expensive and inaccessible menstrual products are without doing that survey. So I've realized through this position that even though you may not serve in one commission, or you may not serve on the executive board or wherever, but you can still have an impact. So I think that project was my first big one in understanding how important research is and making decisions. So I'm going into a very different career path. I'm actually working in technology consulting in New York City with an accounting and professional services firm. So it's not really research based. It's more client focused work, and it's a lot of client services. I'm still working in Excel, and I'm working in a tech related field, but it's nothing that's as heavily research based, and I won't be doing any surveys. But a lot of the skills that I've developed through making these surveys are going to help me in my career, and I've noticed that too, even in my classes and even writing my thesis now. You know, making these surveys that 600 students take at a time, having to analyze data differently based on what a commission wants. Essentially, they're your client in this moment. When I did a survey for the Residence Life Commission, that was my client. Like, I would do anything to help them make decisions with this data. So in my job, I'm going to have clients no matter what. And knowing what their desires are based on meeting with them and then making decisions for them based on what they want, that's universally beneficial in any career. But really, this position has taught me organizational skills, basically the importance of listening to people who may not know that they want to be heard. That's extremely beneficial, and it's helped me just communicate better with people of different commissions. So the staff doesn't really communicate together. We used to have full staff meetings every Sunday at 7 p.m., but we stopped them just to have bi-weekly one-on-ones with John, because we found that we were just kind of updating each other on projects that we were all unfamiliar with, because our work is so siloed. And a lot of the times we have updates every Wednesday anyway at these meetings. So John actually canceled the group meeting, so I don't get to communicate with the rest of the staff as much. However, I do work with commissioners a lot. I'm working with the off-campus commission right now, specifically Joe and Michaela. And I work with the execs a lot, especially Landon, because we are on the Student Support Services Committee together, and we've already been looking at 2 or 3 surveys together. And a lot of projects that the executives and John are passionate about, like textbook affordability, campus climate surveys, they'll pull me into that too as a research director. So I probably work more with commissioners and the executives and the actual staff. But yeah, and I've done some individual research for John with student trustee voting. So really, whoever is passionate about learning something new, research related, I'm usually there helping them make it a survey. Well, I've gotten to know the standing committees through that, and I love all of the administrators I get to work with on the Diversity Inclusion Standing Committee. They're amazing. But besides that, I usually don't work with administrators specifically in Senate, but on those committees, that's when I get to meet, like Winsome with the Multicultural Center and Delphine with LGBT Center. That's when I get to really interact with, administrative leaders. But specifically within this role, within Student Senate and the commissions, I only work with students. I would say make it known as much as possible that you are a resource, because a lot of the times I've noticed before I came on, people didn't really use a research director. At least that's what everyone had told me. And they had 2 research directors last year, and apparently they weren't as fully utilized. And being the only one now, I think I've done 8 surveys last semester alone, or maybe this year alone, but that's a lot. And the year's not even over yet, and I'm about to finish another one with off-campus commission. So, like, letting people be aware of your services and that you're here to help, and being visible, and also trying to go above and beyond with every piece of research you do, because it's so easy to make a survey and kind of, excuse my language, but half-ass it, and then once they're satisfied, you pull the data and you send them over the Excel sheet, and then the commission has to spend the time and go through it and analyze it, and you're not making their job any easier, because at the end of the day, like, people can figure out how to use Qualtrics. There's not a huge learning curve, but as research director, you're not there just to make the data. You're there to find meaning in the data, and I hope the next research director understands how much impact they can have with this position, because research is used to make decisions all over this campus, and it's used to make funding decisions. It's used to make decisions on hiring, on what students need, what students want, expansion projects. There's so many things that the data that we're able to use in the Senate is valuable, and I just hope that the future research director, and I know they will, but I really hope that they are aware of the power of research.